if you want to learn about leadership, one of the classic ways was to come to the library, and there are so many voices about leadership. I was very excited when I discovered that one of my favourite authors of leadership is at QUT and agreed to talk to us. So I don't want to give away any secrets, but you have been leading change for a long time. Professor Fenwick English is about to give us his advice. What makes a good change?
First thing is that change is personal. And the second is it's never going to be easy if it's going to make a difference with anything, because easy change doesn't change anything.
Right.
And sometimes what looks difficult, even if you've gone through a lot of resistance, in the end, it didn't amount to much. I think one of the Nobel Prize winners said, if the solution to your problem is not crazy, it's not going to add anything. And what he meant by that is that being, quote, crazy means it's out of the existing paradigm. Because as long as you're within that paradigm, you may not see any solutions, or they may be trivial. You got to be able to step out of that box, out of the paradigm, look back and say, how have I defined this problem? And maybe that's the issue. They asked Einstein, and they said, if you had an hour to solve a problem, where would you spend your time? He said, I'd spend the first 55 minutes defining the question, and the last 5 minutes answering it.
Right.
And I think that's the key. I have really the real deep-seated changes in education. My class often says to me, well, the change we talk about is so obvious. Why don't people change it? I said, because some people like it that way. They like the way the system works. Now, their children benefit, and as long as their children benefit and it keeps their social economic advantage within a competitive society, why would they change? If somebody's got to like the way it is now, or it wouldn't be difficult.
Yes.
Yeah, so what makes it difficult? But nobody likes to talk about that. Saying who's really in favor of the status quo? Lots of people are in favor of the status quo. So you got to understand the complexity of change. Like I said, if it's easy, it probably won't make a difference.
So your advice for aspiring change leaders is to be a paradigm breaker, perhaps, or at least be courageous enough to question the status quo?
I think you have to ask the question, who benefits? And one of the things about reform is that the reforms usually benefit the reformers.
Okay.
Because they're never going to advance a reform that disadvantages them in the process. So it's somebody once said, if you want to know who's really going to benefit, you follow the money. And that's a pretty good indication of who's going to benefit from this particular change. So you ask the question, who benefits and who doesn't from this proposed change? And that tell you whose interests are really at play.
Now, I need you to give me something hopeful to finish on, because that sounded very, it sounded strategic and political. Is there a message that you'd like these change leaders to leave with?
I think the message is it's more difficult than you think, but it's not impossible.
So still worth doing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's still worth trying to make the change. And if you stop trying to make the change, you might as well retire.
Okay. Well, I hope you don't retire anytime soon, Fen, because I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you so much.